Hello my friends, thank you for joining me once again. Sorry I've been a bit absent, I know I have. I don't really have an amazing reason for it. My life has changed rhythm just a little bit. I'm just working different hours, which is great. I have more family time, but I have less just me alone looking for things to do time. So probably a healthier spot to be in really, but it has affected videos. Coupled with that, I've got a bit of an achy shoulder. It's just a combination of things from work and from probably knife testing as well. And also, to be honest, the knife game hasn't been kicking goals for me lately. There's not a great deal going on that I'm super stoked on. It feels to me like every knife that is coming out now looks like a Koenig Arius, or it's just a Spyderco sprint run with some manufactured scarcity for some small retailer that everyone complains that the site crashed, or it's stories on Instagram of people being ripped off by small makers. I don't know, I'm just kind of stepping back just a little bit because I always think if you're consuming media and it's making you feel unhappy, this is what I always say to my angry commenters, if you're consuming my media and it's making you unhappy, just look away for a bit. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm sure there's some great stuff going on, but I just kind of need to reacquaint myself with where knife YouTube fits into the new rhythm of my life, and also to find some cool new stuff maybe to look at, or find an angle of it that I'm interested in once again. That being said, today I have a very cool knife to show you. And this is a knife that was sent to me by a long-term viewer, Patreon, the family Von Banks. Always reminds me of the Von Trapp family singers for some reason. But yeah, great little knife, the real steel Metamorph. And this fits in with like what other people have kind of decried lately, and something I also decry a little bit, is there's just the huge rise in price in knives in general, and just how much they're expecting us to just casually buy a knife out nowadays. This is a bit of a pushback. It's still not a super cheap knife, but the real steel Metamorph, which is what this knife is a competitively priced little blade with great design, some great aspects to it, and also just a well put together little package. Good steel for the price. It's an overall win. So I'm going to talk a bit about this knife today for a little quick knife video for you. So let's take it down to the tabletop. I'll show you how big it is compared to some other knives, and then we'll talk about what I think's good about it. I've got some interesting things to say about it, some things that sort of occurred to me like just in the last few days of use. And this has had quite the workout. Let's get into it. That's how big the thing is. It's not a tiny knife, but it's a very sort of slim knife. And I think Brad was very much knowing that this is going to be a me knife, because what I like slim knives that fit into like pen pockets of pants and things like that. And this has got a really cool little handle to it. And the best thing about this little blade is that when it is closed, this barely looks like a knife. And this is something that matters if you're in a country that's not super knife friendly, or at least pocket knife friendly, is that, yeah, if you showed this to someone, be like, quick, what is this? They'd be like, like a remote control. You know, it's kind of cool like that. And I mean, I know starting off on the foot of like, you know, this is a good knife, you know, dealing with it, you know, this is a good knife for anti-knife places isn't the coolest way to start a video. It's definitely a factor, and I think it's definitely in effect here. It's a front flipper. It's got a jimped bit of the blade spine sticks out above the handle there. This little triangle here you pull back on with your thumb, and it launches the blade open quite decisively. And you can of course figure out how to do this with one hand, and there you go. And it's pretty much, once you've got the knack, it never fails to deploy. It's got good action, and it's generally a well-assembled piece. The lockup goes to about where you'd want it, about 50%. It's a little liner lock there with a relatively thin little liner, but as I can share with you, it's still quite a good performer in terms of slightly hard use scenarios. So the steel here is 14C28N. It's a pretty basic recipe of steel. It's like an upgrade of the 12C27 Sandvik steel. In my testing, I can get this to perform about as well as, say, your standard VG10. I think an expert treatment of VG10 can probably get a little bit better, but this is excellent stuff for the price, and for a lower cost EDC knife, it'll offer you about the edge retention that you're going to expect, I would say. I would take this over your 8CR 13 MOV type stills any day of the week. So I used this knife to take apart a school stage at my kid's school the other day, and it was a whole lot of duct tape and cable ties. And the thing was, the cable ties were against like circular steel posts. The whole thing was just circular, steel beams, duct tape, some wooden boards, and cable ties. And this did a whole lot of wedging against in between those wooden boards, in between those sort of steel tubing, and really just kind of, you'd have a piece of cable tie like this to be going through here and just kind of like levering it through like that. And the blade would twist and it'd get bumped up against things, and it's really held up well for a light use knife. And it was the kind of thing I volunteered for the job to help them take the stage apart, and I didn't really think about, oh, maybe I should bring my Leatherman or anything like that. This was just the knife that I had in my pocket because I've been carrying it a whole bunch because, well, reasons I'll get to later, I suppose. And it did an admirable job for a relatively low budget sort of knife. And budget by someone's standards is not budget by other people's, but for someone like me who has suffered from the knife sickness quite strongly, this is a pretty decently priced knife. And for something of, relatively, decent price point and humble steel, I guess, humble but faithful steel, it's held an edge really well, and it's most importantly just done the job without needing to stop because it got so dull or because something got loose or anything like that. So it was a really adequate test of the knife in a hard use circumstance. So excellent overall report card on how it was to use. The handle is obviously super neutral. It is basically a stick. And yeah, it's, whilst you don't want to be stabbing with this knife, it is totally fine for repetitive, sort of decent level use, like of both, finer cutting, which, you do your cutting board jobs with it as part of the review. And also, yeah, of the more far-fetched scenarios, it's done absolutely fine. I think I was holding it all the way back here and kind of like reaching it in and using just the tip to, really peel, pry, and it got to work out, and the handle did great, and the blade did great. You see here it's a flat grind, not the most, the keenest of grinds for your EDC use, but it's a relatively thin little blade, and it has done a fine job so far, and everything up needs to cut. Right now I believe that is cardboard and cheese residue. A knife guy's delicacy, cardboard and cheese, and it is, it's kind of like when you take your full driving, and you leave the shit on it for a few days when you get back, so everyone's like, hey, you've been out four-wheel driving, have you? And you're like, yeah, can't you see? My fucking car's got all shit all over it. And that's exactly what this is kind of going on here. Just for the review, I was like, no, I must show them its use. Because I didn't bring my camera with me, of course, to the school thing, because that would have been a bit weird. But yeah, anyway, overall, a great report card from its actual use. Let's talk about its design and the nuances of it as an EDC blade. As a carry, this thing is great. It is about the same real estate as a chunky pen, less than a cigarette lighter, very nice and thin, very nice and lightweight with a great deep carry clip. This is something that you can honestly forget that you've got it in your pocket. It just takes up a really small amount of real estate near the seam. It does great. I think the design is great. I love the concaving on the handle. That is one of my favorite things about it. It's got this really cool kind of futuristic angular look to it, and they've scooped out a channel here and done this sort of cross-hatching through it, and it looks awesome, and it feels really good too. It feels really tactile. The blue anodization, I'm sure it comes in some other colors, but I love the blue. It's quite vivid. Has started to sort of come off a little bit during my hard use, eh? Yeah, actually used this knife, didn't you? And yeah, as such, it's got that Boba Fett effect, as my buddy Tony calls it. It's just ages kind of in a cool way rather than in like a, the black paint peeling off the blade surface kind of way. So I like it a lot. I love the design. The carry in the pocket is great. And overall, it's kind of a unique little blade. There's not a great deal around like this at the moment, and I think that's what's enamored me to it. So, another cool thing about this knife, and again, sort of going into like non-knife people territory again, this is a sort of knife where it's fairly, and this is a bit out the box thinking, right? But this is a fairly safe knife to carry, because if someone was, and this is like in more of a, I work a tactical style job or a job around drug affected people or alcohol affected people. Say if you're a paramedic or something and you want to carry a pocket knife, right? if you carry this pocket knife and some drunk dimwit gets this off of you, or some junkie's like, you know, knocks you over, it's an unfortunate state of society where paramedics are constantly getting roughed up when they're just trying to help people, and this is complete bullshit, and we've got some good laws in my state at least that have just been formulated. But anyway, that sort of shit does happen, and if you got this knife in the hands of some tweaker or something, they would be like, first they'd have to realize what it was, which, yeah, maybe if they've got an abstract mind when they do mushrooms or whatever, and they're, you know, 8-ball chaser of meth, they have a, you know, a way of saying, oh, that looks like a knife, because, you know, they've got that sort of level of really detailed thinking, but most of them aren't going to know it's a knife, right? I'm taking a really long time to get to this point. And even if they do, you give this to anyone, and they're going to be like, huh? They'll be looking for the nail nick. They'll be, you know? And what do you do while they're standing there fiddling looking for the nail neck?
Attack its weak point for massive damage.
You know, while these front flippers are relatively new and kind of only knife people really know what the heck is going on with them, it's just kind of a cool little thought. If you're in that sort of field at least, something to, yeah, keep in mind. Like, it's not going to be readily accessible. If you carry this Buck 110, it's a relatively, like, most of, like, in Australia, most of, like, the Povo brand, like, Excalibur knives are just Buck 110 ripoffs. Everyone kind of knows, you just go, I've got a knife, stabby, stabby, stabby. So, like, if this was to fall out on the asphalt amongst, like, a crowd of hostile people at a pub or something, while you or your paramedic, you know, trying to, you know, work on a patient with a head wound or something like that, then, yeah, someone could pick this up and do some damage. Maybe not to you, but to some other goober bystander who's also standing there probably filming you on his camera phone. This knife, probably less chance of that happening, so there you go. Just a thought, but I thought it was a little cool, you know, little thing to bring up, because, yeah, I've got some real world experience in that sort of part of the world, and it's just something that's occurred to me a couple of times now. Oh, have I said too much? I don't know. Anyway, overall, this knife is an absolute win. For the overall, you know, as long as you don't go in expecting it's like a Chris Reeves Sebenza or something, for something that's relatively diversionary, like a bit of a flavor of the month kind of knife, perhaps, I really can see some, you know, relatively enduring qualities to this blade, and it's something that's a bit different, something that's unique. And if you're in a bit of a knife rut like maybe I am, maybe give like a little front flipper, slender beastie like this a chance, and you'd probably be as happy as I was, I reckon. So, real still Metamorph, Lagomorph, give it a shot. You can't really go too far wrong. Alright, my dudes, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully I'm back with content relatively soon, more stuff, and hopefully it's a bit better, but you know what? I'm going on my journey. You know, you're welcome to tag along as much or as little as you like. So, thank you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Ta-ta.